I want to welcome you to this webinar that we're hosting together with MLA College in UK. The subject of the webinar is distance learning in a professional context, and for everybody to understand the difference between online and distance learning, which our eminent speakers are going to explain to you. I'm sure you'll benefit from their experience and knowledge as we go forward. I mean, we're all facing this digital transition post-COVID, and as we do go forward, it's something that we all have to engage with. And in education, I think it's going to be a key part of the way that our children are educated in the future. I don't think it'll replace classroom teaching, but I'm sure it'll be an addition, and it will give more flexibility to students when they're either unable to attend lectures or school, or in the event of another pandemic. So we have to be prepared for that, and it's critical that we have these discussions to get people on board with what's available, how they can use it, and how the benefits will come into play post-COVID. So I'm not going to talk too much. I want to hand over to Dr. Başak Akdemir, who's the CEO of MLA College, and our other eminent speakers will be Professor John Chudley, who's the rector at MLA College. So we then go into Dr. Jamie Cross, who's head of academic operations, and we'll also be touching on some of the marine education that MLA College also offers, together with touching on global sustainable development. So it's a very interesting agenda, and as I say, we've probably got the best people to educate us in that respect. So I'm going to hand over to Başak and let her introduce the program. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having us. I'd like to talk about MLA College a bit, but let me first introduce my colleagues. I think at MLA we are very lucky in a lot of aspects. First of all, we have MLA College is 6 years old, and we have two partners. One of them is BAU Global, which is the largest education group in Europe in terms of number of students. We have as BAU Global, there are 6 universities, MLA being number 6, but also we have IMAREST, Institute of Marine Engineering, Science and Technology, as our partners. So I think one thing we are great at MLA College is we do bring education and industry together. Today, I'm very lucky to have my colleagues with me, Professor John Chudley, who is director of MLA College, and Dr. Jamie Cross, who is the head of academics. It is great to be working with them. I have to say, Professor Chudley is not only a long-term friend, but is a mentor to me always. And I think he's still keeping on educating me. So he has two duties, I think. Distance learning in a professional context, the MLA College experience. I would not be exaggerating if I told you, for us, as you know, in the UK, we are going to a second lockdown this Thursday onwards. It would not be exaggerating to say for us, it's business as usual. Because at MLA College, we have been providing, and we provide distance online learning, which we will explain in a little. Next slide, please. So at the MLA College, we are at the heart of all we do is the students. So it was MLA College became as a, I don't want to go to too much details of my friends, but it was a spin-off from University of Plymouth. So from day one, it was intended to deliver education to those who are not able to come to the school, to the physical university to take the education. And I know there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to education. And Chris, as you mentioned, probably going forward, we will see more hybrid education, but we were not one of these universities or schools that had to switch to online. That's what we have been doing through our app, which my colleagues will explain in a minute. So at our core, we deliver outstanding flexible education and training. And sustainability is at our core. One of our first programs was Sustainable Maritime Operations. And we will talk about in a little bit. We still work with United Nations Research and Training Center to deliver education, especially on sustainability. And our aim is to develop people who are committed to values that benefit to humanity. Next slide, please. So our values, as I've said before, the student is at the center of everything we do. And for us, education excellence is very important. Equality, diversity, and inclusion is at the heart of what we do. We are very much aware, most of our courses, as you have mentioned, is on maritime industry. And we are very well aware that 3% of women is only, in the maritime industry, the women inclusion is only 3%, but we are doing everything to increase that one. Integrity, creativity, academic freedom for all, and of course, accessibility. We make education accessible to everyone, wherever they are in the world. Now, Dr. Jamie will continue.
Yeah, thank you very much, Başak, and good morning, everyone. Yeah, so I'm Jamie, and I'll talk to you briefly now about some of the programs we offer at the college, along with some detail around the differences between online and distance learning, as Chris introduced a moment or two ago, and specifically in the importance of ensuring that delivery of the education through this medium is undertaken by keeping the student at the center of that delivery, as Başak mentioned. Our history as a college began with a focus on maritime and marine-based subjects, which continues to this day. We offer bachelor's and master's degrees in a range of subjects, which I'll introduce shortly. But we're a college that also manages to get our hands on students through residential programs, historically through our programs in hydrography, but also now through our new global sustainable development program, assuming, of course, the disruption related to COVID ever allows us to resume it. We're an award-winning provider of higher education, having received prestigious awards from Times Higher Education in the past, along with learning technologies. But it's not just about the mechanism through which our education is delivered, it's also our people. We made a deliberate choice to build a team that mixes expert academics with those from industry, which we know to be of tremendous benefit to our student community, who exist mainly as part-time students, but who are also full-time employed both within and outside the maritime sector. John, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, thanks. Yeah, looking now at a sample of some of the programs we offer, you can see that most of these sit within the marine and maritime sphere. Sustainability remains a common theme, though, as we'll go on to explore in a moment or two. All of the programs we currently offer are validated by our partner, the University of Plymouth. So as such, students that graduate with us can be assured that they are receiving their degree from a top UK higher education institution with an outstanding international reputation. You'll spot that many of our master's programs are appended by something called a top-up. This is an important distinction to make, as these are not full master's programs, but instead they represent only the final 60 credits of the full 180 credit UK master's degree. This final 60 credits is the project or dissertation element of the master's degree, and it operates across 12 months on a part-time basis. Now, these programs are highly desirable to full-time employed students who cannot easily take a break from working, nor be separated from family commitments, but they still want to benefit from everything that having a master's degree brings, both professionally and personally. John, next slide, please. Yeah, one recent addition to our top-up suite is the MBA, the Master in Business Administration. This works in precisely the same way as the other MSc offers, in that it's a 12-month program focusing only on the project element of the MBA degree. Clearly, this might represent a departure from the marine and maritime focus, but not necessarily, as students are able to take this specific pathway, as you can see on the slide here. Other pathways are available, of course, and often students discuss which of these are appropriate during the admissions phase through discussions with the admissions tutor and the program leader. Now, as we speak, we're working on a full MBA program with the expectation that this will become available from September 2021, delivered via distance learning. The MBA top-up is a fantastic opportunity for applicants from the business sector to acquire an MBA from a UK university. So for those watching who might be considering undertaking this type of study, please go to our website for further details and get in touch with our knowledgeable admissions team. John, next slide, please. Yeah, in addition to these existing programs, we are particularly delighted to offer a brand new program which by design has been specifically written to focus upon the 17 Sustainable Development Goals promoted by the United Nations. We're acutely aware of the need to encourage and facilitate a new generation of educated members of society who are conscious of the importance of sustainability to all aspects of life on this planet. Now, I'll talk a little more later about the detail of the programme, but it's enough to know now that the programme is fully interdisciplinary. Like I mentioned before, it again utilises this expertise of academia and sustainable development practitioners from a range of institutions and experiences, and that's incredibly important to the way in which the programme functions. It focuses on connections. So sustainability isn't just a buzzword to improve things environmentally. It looks at not just the environment, but the economy and society as well, and in particular the complex ways in which each of these areas interact. It's a program that's really flexible to the needs of the student. It has this aspect where it's taught face-to-face in the first year, what we call level 4 in the UK. The hope, of course, is that COVID will allow us to do that. But then it moves into more of a distance learning phase in later years, in levels 5 and 6, traditionally the second and third years of a 3-year undergraduate program. In these later years, as it says here, it allows students to nurture independent work within their communities, testing those ideas of sustainability at home, in their home location. And then finally, yes, John will go to talk on more later on in the session. The distance learning aspects will again make use of something called a total learning package, but we'll explore exactly what that means, I think, later on in the session. So, John, could I have the next slide, please? So, thinking more broadly for a moment about how we operate as a college, I'm sure it's not escaped your attention that those within the higher education sector that operate on a more traditional basis have been wondering how to continue delivering education during the disruption that's been brought about by COVID-19. It's become increasingly clear that the traditional mode of delivery has become impossible, given the need for most institutions to roll out hugely adjusted timetables and delivery mechanisms. Now, many institutions have expressed a desire to deliver programs online, effectively transposing what they deliver in the classroom face-to-face onto Zoom or some other platform. And whether this is effective and fit for purpose remains to be seen. But I would argue that there is a striking difference between synchronous online learning and asynchronous distance learning. That's not to say that the former cannot be done well, it can, but our experience shows that it's clearly more complex than you might imagine. So I'll go on to explore now some confusion that exists around the terms used for delivering higher education in this way, which, as I hope you'll agree, does not suggest a coherent and positive outcome for students in the short term. John, next slide, please. Yeah, so what we're considering here is a recent example from the academic literature to highlight this point about confusion around what educators, so not laypersons here, not the general public, what educators mean when they talk about online distance learning. Surely they're one and the same, aren't they? Well, the results from this particular study might suggest otherwise. So this is a graph from the study of Singh and Thurman just last year in 2019. And they undertook a somewhat mammoth task of reviewing 30 years of literature to establish whether there is a common understanding of what is meant by online learning. So we have the number of articles found using a particular term on the vertical axis with the actual term used to describe online learning on the horizontal axis. So the chart here shows variation in terms used, sometimes within the same publications, but also sometimes within the same articles. Terms such as online learning or distance learning or education are often used interchangeably, which is particularly concerning, considering is those within the higher education sector we are turning to when faced with how higher education is to navigate through this current pandemic. Now, bear in mind that the literature reviewed here originates from a sector that really ought to be confident about what online and distance learning actually represents, what it means. And if there's a lack of agreement between experts within this field in terms of what it is and how it's delivered, then it must be doubly challenging for non-experts to communicate this to students without a substantial amount of thought and possibly additional training. John, have the next slide, please.
Sorry, Jamie, it's not progressing at the minute. Just bear with me.
Oh, okay, no problem. Chance for everyone to consume that data.
Sorry, I don't know why it's not. I'm just going to stop sharing and restart it.
All right, talk amongst yourselves, everyone. So I suppose one of the pitfalls of doing synchronous online learning is situations such as these. With limited potential for the lecturer to engage with the audience, particularly as I can't see any of you at the moment.
Sorry.
This looks a little more promising.
Yes, she's showing the drawback of online here.
It's not a drawback, John. It's just all part of the fun. I think part of the issue,
compared to distance learning, but we'll come back to that.
Part of the issue is that the presentation is quite large, folks. There's a video embedded in it later on. So I think sometimes there's a challenge with some machines and some IT to manage large files. But fortunately, it looks like we're back in the game. So thank you, John, for persisting with that. So following on from the previous slide then, and adding to the confusion, not the confusion of this webinar, but the confusion of the terms used to describe online learning. The authors of the study that I was mentioning, the one by Singh and Thurman, identified that it's not only the terms used to define online learning, but also how it might be delivered. So I used a couple of terms earlier, synchronous and asynchronous, which are just fancy ways of saying whether students consume their content at the same time or separately as individuals. And what we can see here, though, is the extent to which educators, so again, experts within the field, regard both synchronicity and asynchronicity as key to any definition of online learning. So hopefully the point is made then that for those seeking to replace traditional delivery with any model that contains online components or infrastructure, needs to think very carefully about how this is to be achieved. It cannot simply be a function of uploading face-to-face teaching online, nor recording delivery in a lecture theatre for later consumption. It's far more nuanced than this. As students now pay considerable sums in the UK and across the world to access higher education, they need to feel confident that they are receiving the very best service and teaching, but more than this, they need to feel that they are recognised as important and valid individuals. Support structures still need to be present, which can involve complex systems to monitor engagement and other activities present throughout the entire student journey. John, I hesitate to say this, but can I have the next slide, please? Excellent, thank you. So, at MLA College, we have a proven track record of expertise in distance learning. Right from the beginning, we recognise the importance of student support, engagement and experience. We knew then, as we do now, that they are all vital to ensuring students achieve success. Again, this should not be underestimated by those simply seeking to replicate classroom delivery online. So students enrolling on our programs have access to this expertise, but equally importantly, they have access to UK higher education in a way that might otherwise be impossible, both financially and logistically. In terms of our expertise, we have years of experience in determining the differences between online and distance learning, which principally focus on this distinction between asynchronous and synchronous learning. But much more importantly, I think, on issues such as passive and active learning and the all-important aspect of engagement. Monitoring that is incredibly challenging at the best of times. It does require sort of real personal and close monitoring of the student journey. And that's something that traditional universities will certainly struggle with if they're hoping to maintain in some way their existing delivery model. So higher education institutions cannot expect students to navigate their way through their studies independent of any of these support networks or infrastructure that carefully ensures they are not left to simply get on with it. Goes beyond finance, of course, and cuts right to the heart of the sort of society we want to foster and encourage, pandemic or not. John, next slide, please. Okay, so departing for the moment on these differences between online and distance learning, as an organisation, we don't just pay lip service to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We're proud to say that they are core to everything we're trying to achieve as a higher education institution that is committed to delivering outstanding flexible education and training. Since we started life as a small department within Plymouth University, delivering our initial programs for the hydrography sector, we've been able to demonstrate a clear track record of addressing these goals, particularly with respect to goals 4, 8, 10 and 14. This continued when we moved away from the university and became part of the IMRS, whose very mission seeks to robustly engage with the Sustainable Development Goals throughout all of its activities, in particular, allowing them to further demonstrate and meet their charitable objects. And to sum up which of the goals are most relevant to MLA College, we're compelled to say number 4, a virtue that's no doubt shared by many higher education institutions. But not all of them are able to readily demonstrate this through the programs they offer. And now that we're part of the BO Global Network, this future looks ever more exciting. Our ability to rapidly respond to the demands of the global student community has increased immeasurably, as we're delighted to reveal through the development of our new bachelor's program that we mentioned earlier. John, next slide, please. Sustainability, though, is not a new concept for MLA College, as can be evidenced through our Sustainable Maritime Operations program, which has been and remains a key part of our marine and maritime heritage. I think we're pretty efficient in responding to demand from the global student community, but it's also fair to say the same from the perspective of industry. And what we're looking at in the image to the left is Actually, the modules available in the master's version of the program, which, as you can see by the titles, have strong components relevant to both the SDGs and sectors within the maritime industry. This aspect was a deliberate design choice, and since the program began, we have seen many students graduate, opening up progression possibilities for each of them as they consider the next phase of their careers. In addition to the master's program, there also exists an undergraduate pathway, which is, again, a top-up degree award, broadly representative of the final year of university study. Accessibility remains key to both of these programs, as often applicants can apply for a place by making use of their professional experience in the absence of formal academic qualifications. It's another shameless plug, perhaps, but to those who might be interested, I encourage you to contact our experienced admissions team. We'll only be too happy to talk you through how all of this works. John, next slide, please. Yeah, the topic of accessibility and affordability deserves more attention than we can give here, though I will say that one of the reasons I enjoy working at MLA College is the extent to which our work can remove barriers to entry into UK higher education, which continues to be the case with our new Global Sustainable Development Programme. We don't just have education beyond borders as a fancy strapline, we live and breathe the concept. This all becomes increasingly important in a world that is finally beginning to understand that sustainability is not an optional extra for nation states, but a fundamental requirement. The education provided by MLA College sits at the heart of this, of course, as we seek to develop people who are committed to values that benefit the whole of humanity. If time permits, I'll return in a moment for a short tour through this new programme, which seeks to develop key academic skills whilst learning about what is meant by sustainable development, but it also hopes to develop graduates who apply their knowledge practically. For the moment, though, I'll hand over to John, who would like to say a few words about the origins of the new programme and the philosophy of its development. So, John, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. I thought we should do this and put this photograph in that I took last summer to those of you joining from Istanbul and Turkey to perhaps make you feel at home, or perhaps you've even got this view out of your window. This was last summer when the UNITAR Centre, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, was opened at Başakşehir University. And Başakşehir University has the right then to fly the UN flag. And this is actually on the balcony of Başakşehir University. Some of you may have had the opportunity to go there, but if not, perhaps you could look at doing that in the future. It's for us from England, it's a spectacular spot to look at and look over the Bosphorus. But it's perhaps coming back to education beyond borders as well as sustainability, in the way that being part of Bo Global allows us to operate and truly look in a global sense. At the opening of the UNITAR Centre, the CFAL Centre, Nikhil Seth, who's the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, was present. And we were just having a discussion. And the discussion was around how, yes, there are higher education programs that include parts of the UN Sustainable Development Goals or stress the importance of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But it was felt that there was no program that perhaps embeds them at the heart of the whole degree program. And that's from a curricula and also to the way it's actually delivered. So the one thing we have in MLA College is the ability to rapidly respond to things. So from that meeting there on a sunny day in Istanbul overlooking the Bosphorus was where the Global Sustainable Development Programme was initially considered, and we're here now delivering it with the support of the United Nations. So that's really just to stress that education beyond borders does sit at the heart of what we do as well, and with Bo Global we actually have that opportunity for all of our students to be able to utilise that opportunity. Jamie.
Thank you very much, John, for that little bit of background. And I think it is worth emphasising that this is something that we believe in passionately. Is integrating the Sustainable Development Goals into the programmes of education that we offer. It's important, in any case of any normal event, if you like, but certainly now, when we're thinking about a shrinking global community and what's happening with the pandemic, it's ever more important for future generations to become educated in the importance of sustainability. And there's a pressure upon us as educators to ensure that the programs of education that we're putting forward for consumption by future students and the present student community are fit for purpose, and that they can better reflect the needs of society, not just in the short term, but in the medium and long term as well. And so, that's very much a part of what we've developed here in response to all of that. Coincidentally, perhaps, with the pandemic coming along and the importance that is going to be placed on some of these aspects moving forward, the philosophy that John just outlined, and the way in which this has been written, reflecting on what is represented by the Sustainable Development Goals, then what we have here is something that is very much fit for purpose, and we know that it's going to be of huge value to global communities and students across the globe. So what we're looking at here is a breakdown of the modules on this new program. The different colours represent different components of the offer and different pathways. The red blocks, the blocks on the left-hand side, they're compulsory. So that would be the first year of education that students would ordinarily, in any normal event, look to come to our campus in Plymouth in the UK and be taught on a face-to-face basis. That plan, like so many others, as I was explaining, has had to be disrupted when the programme starts in January. It will be principally through synchronous online delivery, but plenty of other blended activities built within that. Again, we're building upon our expertise and our knowledge of distance learning to help provide a much improved and enhanced student experience than others might otherwise have through traditional universities that don't have the benefit of doing this for many years now. Following that first year, the building blocks, as it's mentioned here, we revert to a distance learning phase. You could see that the program is more than a consideration of the environment here, which, as I mentioned previously, is a common misunderstanding of what sustainability represents. And you can begin to see that through this different arrangement of colours that these pathways bleed into the final level, where all of the theory can begin to be put into practice. No more so than during this mandatory component, the service learning project. It's another key aspect of this novel programme, in that there is a requirement for students to engage within a project that focuses on some aspect of sustainability locally, i.e. in the region in which they live. This could be whilst employed, but more realistically by taking on some voluntary work through local non-profit organisations. So hopefully graduates from the programme will then be living proof of what is meant by putting theory into action. John, that's pretty much it from me, I think. Unless you've got anything to add on this slide, I can hand over to you now for the rest of the session.
Thank you, Jamie. I think what I would say, just to add on this slide, is that I think this is a way this was designed pre-COVID, when we're trying to look at best educational practice to the future. And one of the things I think all universities and societies should now address is that, what is the point of a traditional 3-year degree? That's quite a statement to make, but that's where we started. We don't deliver, this is not being delivered as a 3-year degree. I know it looks like 3 blocks, But the whole point in that, the critical interaction phase and the theory into action stage, is that they will be back in society and putting this into place. So this program would typically, the building blocks are a traditional approach, and we felt that that students need that in this particular program to develop the skills that are required for the critical interactions and theory interaction stage. But those could perhaps take 2 years each. When you're embedding them in the workplace, you undertake a service learning project that is, you know, real in a workplace, embedding a UN Sustainable Development Goal, you know, within either a workplace or a charity back within their perhaps host country. So I think what perhaps COVID is making people do now is in actual fact, what does education need to look like in the future? So we talked about distance learning and online learning, and I think the distance learning, we've been supported by an award-winning total learning package. And this on the face of it looks quite simple in quotes, but there's been years of development to actually get this correct. And you know, that's been recognized through the awards that it's won. And it's important to say that from a distance learning, and this is not meant to be a criticism of what is happening now with COVID. Distance learning is definitely not just doing what we're doing now. You know, this is a webinar. Distance learning is far more holistic in that, and that it has to be a package that includes everything that can be made available to the student. So if you're looking here, this is a screen grab. It looks like a typical almost app, you know, web page or even apps on your phone, but there's the welcome, there's the My module, there's your handbook, contacts, news, requirements, everything you need for the module is available on the total learning package. And the beauty as well in the design of this in the early days was that it's all downloadable. So you don't have to have access to the internet, broadband. And this was primarily done because in the early days, the target students were those that were at sea. And of course, when you're on board a ship in the middle of the ocean, you perhaps haven't got online availability. So indeed, you can download this onto memory stick and you can work on it in any way. So again, we're putting the student at the heart and making the distance learning as easy as possible for them. If you have a look, this is going then into the module material, and you can see there's lectures on research methods, project management, leadership, and then indeed you've got all of the supporting materials that you require as well. So everything, it's a bit wary to say one-stop shop because you still have to read around this and outside it, but virtually everything that is required to undertake the module is in one place. And this then, just showing here a screen grab of lectures that are there, and you can actually get the transcript of the lecture. So as you again, you can take that and you can read it as well. So everything to allow reflective learning, and also where you can perhaps dip in and out. So, you know, you're listening to us now for sort of 45 minutes or so, but indeed you can do 10-minute bites. You can do anything to actually suit the individual. This is backed up with our training modules with a web portal where you can access as well. This is online. And again, you have lectures there, you have transcripts. Indeed, there's perhaps other boxes below that if there is reference material and papers from that are perhaps suggested reading from the lecturer. Just an example there of perhaps what that might look like. And then that is also backed up by an online app. So as you could access on your phone as well through My Modules. Here's a training module on financial economic models in business. And then, you know, lecture 3. So again, you can dip in and out, and you can do things as you require. And a lot of thought has gone into that design over the years. And I think that's the issue now in COVID. Everyone's thought, okay, we can't have the students in the classroom, we've got to go online. And they've either recorded lectures or they're using synchronous teaching. And as I say, it's not a criticism, it's a way to do it, but it's not a holistic view to what distance learning should look like. It's an adaptation of what's done in the classroom to something that's required now, but that is not the best student experience from a distance learning perspective. So what's it actually like for a student that has undertaken this? So we're actually going to see Jamie again now, but interviewing a student for their experience. And this student actually did our MSc in engineering for the Marine Professional top-up master's program.
Hello everyone, my name is Jamie Cross. I'm the Head of Academic Operations at MLA College, and I'm joined today by Brady Hogg, one of our former students who has recently completed an MSc in Engineering for Marine Professionals. Brady is here to talk about the extent to which distance learning might help engineers and marine professionals advance their careers and possibly help achieve professional registration.
I always wanted to be an engineer, or I think I did. Especially the skills associated with engineering, such as problem solving, that really seemed to work with me. When I was in Sea Cadets as a teenager, I studied some basic marine engineering, and eventually I chose the Royal Navy as my career path. Then about 10 years ago, I chose to come ashore and didn't really know what to do, and an opportunity arose in Fleetwood Nautical Campus. Working in the educational sector was very new, but I was able to transfer a huge amount of skills from my previous experience in the Navy through to the job where I am now.
How did you hear about MLA College, and how did you hear about the program on which you eventually enrolled, the master's program?
Well, I've been searching for a course for some time. I actually did a postgraduate qualification with my previous university to start with, and I thought that I wanted to top up to master's level, and it was an ideal opportunity to prepare me for chartered engineer. It satisfied everything. It just seemed to fit straight away. It was that moment where you realised, actually, yes, everything about this course is what I have wanted. I possibly could have gone down the experienced engineer route towards chartered engineer, but I'm actually really glad I chose this master's degree, because I never really imagined how much experience I would gain during the undertaking of this program of study, but more so actually how enjoyable it's been and how satisfying it's been. And it's allowed me to approach the chartered engineer in a very different way than I would have done before, not just by ticking the box to say I have an academic qualification, but with the new skills and experience that I've gained along the way.
Is how do you cope with that constant juggling act of the professional and personal and study schedules? It must be difficult.
Very difficult. I am lucky though. I have a very supportive network around me. My employer are very supportive. Enter with your eyes open. Make sure you are very well aware of what you are undertaking and what it takes to do what you want to achieve. But thankfully, my family are very understanding, and I've had full support, and they've really been helpful. And I think they're probably grateful I've finished now, but they were supportive throughout the entire process.
Okay, I think there it's worth just noting that distance learning is not an easy option. A lot of our students are, well, in fact, virtually all of our students are employed in doing this. So it is perhaps a juggling act sometimes. But what I just wanted to do for the next 5 minutes to complete the presentation is, it was alluded to there that the majority of our students actually are undertaking academic programs, but with a view to professional registration. And I think this is really important. I think this is at heart of the future of education and training and skills across the globe. It's that I think we all know a degree, yes, it's important, you know, that degrees can be done in a range of subjects. However, for industry and employers going forward, it's also important that maybe a lot of degrees are more looking towards professional registration in certain sectors. If I look here at, I've just called it the stairway, and please ignore the numbers on the stairway. This is a UK-based sort of system where level 3 is sort of our A levels and level 7 is a master's program. But it's important in designing education for the future that it's actually flexible, and that I challenged the 3-year degree earlier, but you should be able to step on and step off when it suits you as an individual, or indeed as an employer or hopefully the two actually working together when perhaps the employer is looking at its future education, training and skills needs and the gaps it's got, and perhaps allows its workforce to step on and off educational programs. So if you look here, primarily in green is the equivalent of what you would say your higher education program. I've called it higher level skills on this particular diagram intentionally, because I'm trying to blur the edges between education and competency. And then you, on the right, talks about a professional body approval. So for instance, by that, what I want to stress, yes, I might have a degree, I might have a PhD, I might have a doctorate, but the most important thing I have after my name is chartered engineer. And that's because that's my recognition from my sector. It's not in the UK, we don't have a license to practice in engineering, but it's as near as it can be. So if I want to design a propeller for the Navy, for instance, that's my background, designing propellers for ships, I would have to be a chartered engineer. Doesn't say I have to have a degree or a doctorate, but I have to be a chartered engineer because that's the competency that is actually required. And the beauty of distance learning, and in particular the master's programs we offer, it's about allowing individuals that need to within the workplace that opportunity to develop education at a higher level that allows them to think about professional registration. And that's just as important, be it in marketing, be it in logistics, be it in finance, in a number of areas. And this is just perhaps now to challenge back to perhaps some of the employers that are watching today. This looks a very complex slide. It is very easy, and I'll show it in a minute, but it looks quite complex. This was working with a country's marine department, and they were not getting the individuals they wanted through into the marine department to practice at the level that was required. And what they wanted was a route through to chartered marine technologist. Chartered marine technologist is a register held by the Institute of Marine Engineering Science and Technology, and it's recognized as an occupational competence required to practice within this marine department. So they wanted a route through to chartered marine technologist. So this is really divided into three pillars. They could not send their workforce or their new recruits on a traditional degree program, master's program. So we wanted a knowledge and understanding pillar. We worked with them and we embedded a postgraduate diploma, Sustainable Maritime Operations and Masters through distance learning into what they do on a day-to-day basis. So the Marine Department supply a mentor. We have quite a unique model. We have very few academicians actually within MLA College, but we have a large number of associate tutors who are subject specialists and subject experts around the globe. One or two of them are listening today. And that way we can supply the expertise that an individual or a company requires to actually help them develop. So we have a knowledge and understanding pillar. And then within the workplace, they have occupational competence because they want people competent to do whatever they're doing, be that in vessel traffic services or in surveying, etc. And it's important. We know that a degree, yes, a degree gives a level of education, knowledge and understanding, but a degree does not make you competent to actually undertake a role. So again, what we're trying to do in working with employers is to take a holistic approach. And then alongside occupational competence, you have professional competence, which is a professional standing, the way that you expect people to work. And all of that leads to professional registration. So that's the way I feel we should be looking at education and training and skills in the future, is that we don't look at things in silos. We look at them at pillars that actually support a professional requirement. So you could argue this diagram should be drawn the other way around. But we try and embed that, and you'll see that between knowledge and understanding and occupational competence in particular, there is a dashed line. So as a research project is not undertaken for the sake of it, but it can be linked or can even be an occupational competence project. So as you're not doing things just for the sake of it from an educational perspective, but you're embedding it within your workplace environment. So what looked quite complex, I hope you agree, is not. So looking to the future, I think universities and employers need to be innovative in looking at what we do and question what is actually done. And distance learning allows us to actually do that. And it should be a joint enterprise between education and employers. And I think, you know, that's, I think possibly been paid lip service to in the past. But again, we are trying to put that at the heart of what we do, and distance learning truly allows that. And indeed, I think we are going to see a sea change in higher education. This slide was pre-COVID, and I think it's more relevant than ever now that 50%, in particular of the undergraduate curriculum, will be offered outside the university of campus. So if that's the case, again, challenge the 3-year degree. As long as the program intended learning outcomes are achieved, that can be done over a time period to suit the individual and indeed the employer. There is a blurring and distinction between public and private providers. And I think that's important because private providers can be more fleet of foot. There'll always be a requirement for an elite set of universities, and that should be there because of, in particular, around research that is required for us to develop across the globe. And actually in the UK, I think that's what this last bullet is there, but the students do sit at the heart of our higher education, and they can pick and choose what suits them best. So again, that means we need to question what we deliver and how we deliver it. So just here, I think if you look, this is a diagram that's used in the UK, but around the outside of that arc are the traditional academic programs. On the inside were what were traditionally classed apprenticeships, and very, very rarely do the two meet. To get it right, what we have to do in a holistic program is join them, and actually we have to be addressing the whole slice. So that's knowledge and understanding and competence. Just finally, so the way forward, I think, and distance learning, I keep repeating that, but allows this. It allows, I think, targeting access to the professions. We can work with the professions from a distance learning perspective and be proactive and be adaptable into what a profession requires. I think stopping off points are key. So employers and individuals can address what their skills gaps are and whatever that might be, and step on and step off, you know, at the best time to do that. And I think those opportunities have always been there, but we haven't actually made them visible. So, you know, we need to progress that to the professions in a number of occupations as an alternative to the traditional, I should have put traditional, degree level entrance there. You know, or indeed, if employers take on those with bachelors, how could you look at then perhaps flexible distance learning masters within the workplace that suits your skills requirements, and indeed investing in individual to develop them as well. So I hope we've given you something quite challenging to think about there. We've covered quite a lot, from distance learning to sustainability, and then indeed how you could embed that, you know, within your own profession. But I hope you'll see that Bashak introduced at the beginning our commitment, and I just thought I'd show them there at the end and keep them on the screen, perhaps while we take questions, because to undertake distance learning, and I think in particular make suitable distance learning packages for industry, those 3 bullets of our commitment are at the heart of what we do and are extremely important. So Chris, thank you very much, and perhaps that's us if there are any questions.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, it you know, it's very educational for all of us just to see, you know, what the future holds. And I mean, when you know, you listen to, you know, the both the evidence of you know, how distance learning, you know, can play a major role going forward. You know, there are a couple of things that sort of, you know, I took away from this, and you know, I mean, educate to employ. I mean, we have to educate people who then can be employed, and it comes back to this this competence area. I can't remember who said it, but knowledge without understanding is useless. You know, this is the issue. You know, it's having the knowledge and then, you know, transferring that knowledge into competence and then, you know, being an employee of value. So it's you know, it's all those issues that I think we have to, you know, wrestle with in order to, you know, as you say, get the dots joined up here. And the other thing is, you know, the vocabulary that, you know, we still use, both in employment and education and you know, what government refer to, which you know, I've always had a question mark about my own organisation. I mean, chambers of commerce, you know, it's something that goes back, you know, more than 100 years, and you know, does chambers of commerce still reflect what business is all about? And we're still using apprentices. We're still using words that, you know, are still relevant, but, you know, going forward, should we have a different description of you know, what we're actually trying to do? You know, have you know, new titles on new programs that relate to young people, and I think that's the point I'm trying to make. I remember, you know, a long time ago when, you know, that was it. I mean, you either went on to higher education, or you took an apprenticeship, or you went and worked in a factory. I mean, you know, these were the options. And you know, apprenticeships sort of lost favour, you know, going into sort of the 90s and into the noughties, and you know, governments have tried to sort of reinstate these things. But you know, I still think young people, you know, look at apprenticeships and think, well, what is that? And maybe we have to, you know, come up with some more innovative titles that appeal to younger people. As I say, just a thought. And I think that, you know, the other key area that, you know, distance learning actually offers is this flexibility. And I think, you know, that's what young people will be looking for in the future. And, you know, I have, you know, a son who's, you know, in his third year, doing, you know, what we call, you know, traditional university education. But, you know, we have talks, and he talked about, you know, I'd like a bit more flexibility in terms of, you know, focusing on one subject and then having time to sort of have a look at another one. But, you know, the curriculum, you know, doesn't actually, you know, allow that. So, you know, lots of positives in all that. And you know, the issue of you know, educating people who are in employment, I think that's another major opportunity, where, you know, companies, employees, employers, and associations, you know, will see the benefit of the programs that MLA are offering. And you know, there's you know, I think employers need to understand what the benefits there are. I don't think, you know, there's enough done with, you know, the various organisations that represent employees, the Institute of Directors in UK, and other associations, sector associations, you know, to really understand, you know, what the future holds. And you know, I think you know, that there is work to be done. And you know, I agree with John. I mean, this mismatch between, you know, traditional education and government, and, you know, the stuff in between, and I think that's again an area that does need a lot of work. And I think this is a great platform in order to move that discussion forward and you know, change the narrative to some extent. So anyway, I'm just going to go into the chat box. Apprenticeships today include master's degrees.
Yeah, can I, Chris? Sorry, Chris, just on that, and again, it was just, yeah, Chris was on to just to say, I mean, I think that's important. That, I mean, I was an apprentice and went through the route, Chris, you were alluding to. You know, I was an apprentice, then did a degree, and then, you know, went through. But I was a director of the National Apprenticeship Service before I came back to higher education. And we were working hard to create what we were calling higher apprenticeships. But I just want to say something here, and this is where I think as a generation, as a society, we misuse terms, because intentionally in the early design of these apprenticeships that you can embed degrees and you can embed masters, we called them higher apprenticeships. And that was intentionally because we didn't want to put the word degree in them, because as soon as you put a degree in the title apprenticeship, it makes it about the degree and not about the holistic process that is knowledge and understanding, occupational competence and professional competence. So anyway, that's what we proposed, but whoever at the time in the government, it was changed. Oh no, we're going to call them degree apprenticeships. But this is the trouble. We value the word degree and not the professional recognition. I explained about me being a chartered engineer. You know, if I go down to, give an example, to my English pub in my town, and I say I'm a chartered engineer, it means nothing to anyone. If I say I got a degree, it'll be like, oh, that's really good. Whereas in actual fact, the degree is only a small part of becoming a chartered engineer. So yes, we can do higher level apprenticeships, dare I call them degree apprenticeships, in the UK. But again, they do have bureaucracy linked to them. The beauty of the Marine Department model that I showed, that is truly a higher apprenticeship with a postgraduate diploma and master's embedded in it. And Chris Horton actually knows that, because Chris Horton is actually involved in that program and delivering it as well. So I don't think we have to wrap the term apprenticeship or degree apprenticeship around something, but the reason for showing that to the development we did with that Marine Department, I'm sure they won't mind me saying actually it's a Hong Kong Marine Department, is that's exactly what a higher apprenticeship should look like. But of course in the UK, as soon as you link funding with it, it becomes very bureaucratic in the way that it has to be developed. So I think, yes, that model that puts knowledge and understanding and competence all together is absolutely key.
Thanks for that, John. And just a quick comment on SDGs. And you know, I've attended a couple of webinars over the last 10 days where SDGs were very much on the agenda. And you know, there's one particular one looking at the textile sector and how textile companies, you know, also have to, you know, do a lot of thinking about how their carbon footprint can be improved. You know, all the wastage that we see, how you can recycle you know, materials and textiles, and you know, there's some, you know, very interesting comments. You know, it's very focused, but even so, I mean, the core of that was sustainable development for the textile industries and how, you know, that particular sector needs to move forward. And you know, one of the points that was raised more generally was, you know, how we educate people to understand what SDGs are all about, you know, and how you actually implement them. And you know, one of the missing areas in that was education, and how we educate, you know, the next generation as to, you know, how we have you know, sustainable development goals, how we execute them, and you know, how we support them. And you know, this was part of their discussion, and here we have MLA who are, you know, starting that journey on educating, you know, the next generations in terms of sustainable development goals. And you know, I did add the point that you know, in UK, you know, it's surprising to see that as far as I'm aware, we only have 2 universities offering a BSc in sustainable development, and one is MLA College, the other one's Warwick. Now, you know, that can't be right, can it? I mean, in terms of sustainability, I mean, we have to get, you know, more people involved in educating people as to what SDGs actually mean. So, yeah, I mean, it's, I mean, all these areas are sort of topics that will continue as we get through COVID and go forward when things get back to whatever the new normal is. And you know, I think we at MLA, have a major role to play in all that, and we've already started the journey. So I think we'll be a leader, not a follower in this, and I think more webinars that we've just experienced, I think will accelerate that process. So where are we on time? Just let me have a look. Yeah, 13:30. Yeah, we're about on time, I think. And so just to let everybody know, we will be circulating the webinar. It will be on our website. And as I say, we'll also circulate it through our membership networks, both in UK and in Turkey. Any questions that you want to raise that you've thought about after the presentations, I mean, please submit them to us on our email address on our website, and we will then pass them on to Bashak and John and Jamie, and they can contact you directly. But as I say, we will be doing more of this. It's a platform that we want to build, and giving global access to students using this technology, I think, is going to be a major opportunity going forward. So this project we have to continue. So I want to thank Bashak, I want to thank John, and I want to thank Jamie for their enormous contribution and sharing their experience and knowledge on this. And stay safe, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.